It's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday, finally. Boy, but I don't know where time goes. I'm Dr. Lori Davis, your host for today. I believe Jay's going to pop in. We have two exciting guests. So, welcome to the Today Show. Presently, we're streaming live on Lori Davis Facebook page and two of my YouTube channels, one Lori Davis Show Host and the other one 5 Minutes to No Limits. So, welcome. I don't know that we have any announcements today. A couple of things coming up later in the month. We're doing a big fundraiser for a very good colleague and friend of ours who's struggling with breast cancer right now. So we don't want her to worry about money over the summer. So we're doing a fundraiser on the evening of June 23rd. And former NHLer Doug Smith and I are going to host a workshop called 10 Ways to Build Confident Children, which is our solution to the bullying situation. So join us. It's $25 and you send your $25 directly to Virginia, and I'll put her email up in a little bit. All right, let's see. Anything else? I think we're good. Nice and cloudy here today, but summer's here. The leaves are out, finally getting some warm weather in the great Northwest, the great cold Northwest. All right, so we're going to do a little 30-second break. Already, we're going to have a break, but we're doing this to just share with you that now the show is pretty much established. We run 5 days a week. Monday, we work on self-care, self-improvement, empowerment, and we usually have guests every show. Tuesday, I bring in Dr. Ramin Modiri, our financial guru, and every Tuesday we do a show on finance. And he's from Southern California, and he's amazing. And he just takes really complicated financial stuff and makes it simple for lay people like ourselves. And then on Wednesday, we do wellness. So whether it's conventional or alternative methods of getting healthier. And on Thursday, we feature special communities like veterans, our Indigenous community, our disabled community, and we usually have guests there as well. And then Friday, today, it's Fun Day. So we're going to have some fun with Dan White and Jill Younghusband, and they're both musicians of some sort. I'm not quite sure yet. I know Jill, but Dan, I have more to learn about. And then former military. So that's kind of cool that these two guys landed on the same show. I think that's very fun. Okay, so the 30-second countdown. If you have a product, a program, a book, a CD, anything that you'd like to sell out there to build your businesses, we're now accepting advertising, and it's very cost effective. We're going to do a nice introductory offer for the first 3 months, and you can be on all of our shows. I do 5 a week, and then I co-host a sports show on Tuesday with our colleague Doug Smith, former NHLer. So he and I host a sports show. Can you believe that? Me on a sports show? Seriously? I can hardly walk down the front steps without falling down. And we're into athletes, and wow, I just keep saying to Doug, just keep your stick on the ice. That's all. Okay, here we go, and we'll bring in our guests. Because that gives you some idea of how long 30 seconds is. And you could say a lot during there. I'm going, will you please get over? Will you get done? So when we're waiting for those seconds to fly by. Jill, I'd like you to meet Dan. Dan, meet Jill. Good morning.
Hi, Dan. Hi, everyone. Good morning.
And Kathy Bell is here. Oh, good morning. Yes, good morning, Kathy. She's our technical person. And you'll actually be getting an email from her and a gift, because we give out a gift to all of our guests as they come on to the show. So I would like to start with you, Dan, from way down south, and just maybe a little a little history, like so we get to know you better. Over to you. Who's Dan
Uh,
White?
well, I'm a music educator. I teach music. That's what my main job is. I teach grades from 6 through 12. I
Oh,
did a stint in the military right out of high school, joined the Army band system. And like I said, music's been in my life for as long as I can remember. Once I got out, I went back and got my degree, my bachelor's and my master's degree in music education. And now I'm just to a point in my life where I'm ready to leave something behind. So I'm already writing and producing my own original works now. And that's what I'm kind of doing at the moment.
oh, that sounds exciting. And how long were you in service?
I did 9.5 years.
Okay, all right. Jill, over to you for introductions.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Jill Younghusband. I'm coming to you from Alberta, Canada, and I joined while I was still in high school. I started off as a trucker, and then I changed to administration and logistics, and served for 17 years. And part of my rehabilitation, um, vocational rehabilitation after my medical release, I was offered 2 years of community college. So I took a music program at Grant MacEwan University, and it's a one-of-a-kind program for singers. And so it's a jazz vocal program. So that was a 2-year program. And then shortly thereafter, I got hired on at the Department of Music at the University of Alberta. I worked there for 5 years, as well as performing locally and doing some special projects to commemorate the veteran and the Canadian military. And so I've just been rolling along over the last couple decades after leaving the military, working in music education, program management, and also veteran advocacy.
Are you guys related at all?
Isn't that interesting, hey? Music
Isn't
education.
it?
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea, Jill, about that. That's amazing. Now, Jay is probably good. Jay's kind of like a fly. He just kind of flies in and and then he flies out. So I am expecting him. So in the process of our conversation, if I see him backstage, I'll let you know, and we'll let him pop in. He's kind of busy today, but he loves Fridays and he loves to have an appearance on the Friday show. So he was the host of this show, but now I've sort of, I guess sort of taken over. Would that be right to say that? Well, people see me more often than they see him, so that's all right too. Okay, so let's see. What else do we want to know? Um, Jill, why don't you talk about your CD? Because you have a CD that you came out in what, 2003? And maybe just familiarize us with the kind of music that you like to sing. She's got some gorgeous music that's so beautiful. Over to you, Jill.
Well, thank you. Well, I've always been a singer since I can remember. And I grew up listening to Patsy Cline, Tammy Wynette, Linda Ronstadt. The Andrews sisters had a huge influence on me when I was quite young with the K-Tel commercials, and you hear the tracks scrolling through on the commercials and the harmonies. And so that I've always loved to sing. And my dad was an influence, quite a heavy influence on my music. And so after I retired from the military and was going to Grant MacEwan, I ran into a local philanthropist after a Sunday church service. And he came up to me and he said, "Do you have a recording? Do you have a CD?" I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Well, you will." And he walked away and everybody was saying, "Do you know who that was?" And his name is Larry Anderson. He was a local commercial real estate developer and entrepreneur, businessman in Alberta, and was involved with community support with education and athletics and volunteerism. Just a wonderful man. And so he sponsored my CD, and he even came up with the title of it. It's entitled Wings of Peace, a tribute to the Canadian soldier. And we recorded it at Mamio Beach Recording Studios in Pigeon Lake, Alberta, with Miles Jackson as producer, and he plays some tracks on the album. and he brought in horn players from Calgary, Alberta. There's this whole variety of genres on the CD. There's jazz, there's folk, there's a serious lyric. So all of the training that I took at Grant MacEwan College, or Grant MacEwan University now, prepared me for this project. And so that was in 2003 that this CD was recorded and released. And it was a real labor of love. It took about 6 weeks of nose to the grindstone work, back and forth on the highway. It was about an hour away from Edmonton where I stayed. And it was an exciting time. I can't believe it's been over 20 years since it was recorded, but it's one of my labors of love. I don't have any children, but this is one of my babies.
Very nice. Well, that takes a lot of work. I know I don't sing, but I talk. And so a lot of my stuff I had it recorded professionally too, because at the time I had a huge clientele that were blind from the blind community. And so I put all my stuff on CDs for them so that they could participate in the workshops that way. So it was kind of cool too. And what about you, Dan? Are you busy producing something, or you want to produce something, or you have? Fill us in.
Well, I've got 7 singles out right now.
Do you?
I just kind of release a song anytime I come up with one and I can get a chance to get in the studio and record it.
Right.
My newest one just came out 2 weeks ago. It's called 80s Child. It's kind of an 80s anthem for Gen Xers. So that's my newest one. And then before that one, it was my military song. I call it 22. I released it on Veterans Day last year. 22 is basically the national average of U.S. service members who commit suicide each day. So I wrote that one to bring out awareness of the problem and also help any veterans that may be in dark places. I mean, if I can reach somebody that may be thinking about something and cause them to change their mind, then I've done my job as a musician and an ex-veteran.
Absolutely. That's right. That's why we love our work, because of the channel that we're associated with, the Disability Channel. And of course, they provide programming and so on for veterans to be able to re-enter the workplace through the broadcasting systems and the media, getting trained up in the media, in front of the camera and behind the camera. So this is all very timely that we're all here together today. There are no accidents, do you know? Oh, Kathy says this: I cannot sing, always out of tune. So what's your next move? What are you going to do next, Jill? Oh, before we do that, guess who just hopped in? We'll bring him in and then we'll get back to our discussion. How's that? Or we have, there he is. Good morning.
Hey, Lori.
Where are you?
Hi, Jill. Hi, Dan. Very exciting. I want to tell our viewers right now, our channel is in Halton Hills Public Library, and we're doing a live production for the town of Halton. So we have a packed auditorium here called the John Elliott Theater. We have wonderful students of abilities. We had Unstoppable Tracy do an amazing inspirational speech. You guys will have to check her out. So really what we're doing here today is we're teaching the class, well, the library, the membership, how to become a production person. So whether you want to learn a new skill in front of the camera like myself as a talk show host, or you want to learn a new skill behind the camera as a camera person, audio, lighting, social media, and get paid, turn it into a job. So we're really excited. So we just interviewed the big cheese. We just interviewed the CEO of the library, Beverly King, telling us all about her programs that they offer to the town of Halton Hills, including accessibility programs for all the way from kids up to seniors. It's a wonderful facility. So if people are not aware what libraries offer these days, especially the library in Halton Hills, I would recommend you check it out, because I believe it's a free membership and there's so much free stuff they offer here. So come on in, check us out. They're very kind here, but I really want to thank you for letting me pop in today, as we're really excited today as we have a hero on our show today. Two heroes. But today we're going to be interviewing Dan White, all the way from Texas. And you know, everything is big in Texas. So Dan, thank you for being on the show today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
This is great. So let me tell our viewers a little bit about Dan. So Dan is a triple threat. He's a band leader at high school. He's going to tell us more about that, but he's a veteran and he's a musician. So Dan, tell us how your music helps your fellow men and women within the military and out, please.
Well, I mean, I've always been a music person. Of course, now I teach music in middle school and high school. But I also wanted to do something for the veterans out there because, you know, a lot of veterans are going through things once they get out. Uncle Sam, as we call it, teaches us a certain job. But once we get released from that job, people have different, I guess, ways of dealing with the world once they get out of that structured environment. And so one of the things is suicide rate is really high among U.S. veterans or any veterans anywhere. And so that's kind of why I wrote the song 22, was to bring awareness for other people and also any of the veterans that hear it, hopefully, you know, talk them out of any dark situations they're thinking of.
Well, that's great, Dan. And I want to also mention that Jill is also a veteran. So Jill, thank you for your service also. This is amazing. So Dan, tell us, because we're in a classroom sitting here, even though it's a library, tell us a little bit about your being a band leader experience. And is there any kids within your school that have ability issues? Can you share that too, Dan, perhaps?
Well, it's definitely different being in front of about 30, 40 kids every hour. This year I had over 200 sixth graders in my beginning band. So that was a real thing, taking them from ground zero all the way to where they could play concerts at the end of the year and harder literature. So it's fun because I get to see the light bulbs go on at that age where they go from nothing and they're like, oh, wow, I can't believe I can do this right now.
Oh, wow.
I recommend that to all of our students out there. If you have an inkling for any type of music, whether that's writing, singing, learning to play an instrument, I highly recommend it. It is such a zen factor for people. I'm a guitarist player myself, and I try and play every day. I'm not very good, but it's really relaxing for me. So I recommend anybody out there, but you know, Dan could probably atone for that too and say, yeah, he does that. So tell us now, Dan, do any of your students, do they know that you serve, that you're a veteran?
Yeah, I have some of my awards and pictures posted up in my office, so they see it.
And can you share any thoughts that they might, you know, replies or comebacks that they give you? Do they ask you any interesting questions regarding your service?
Most of the first thing out of most of their mouths are, were you in battle or did you fight or anything? It's like, no, I played music and I supported the ones that were on the front lines or in the forward operating bases.
Please do tell our viewers your title again, Dan.
I was a sergeant in the U.S. Army, which is an E5.
And Jill, yourself, please, can you share anything you'd like to share regarding you?
I was a corporal for life, and I worked with both the Army and the Air Force as a trucker and then as an administrator. And I was actually a recruit instructor. I was a drill instructor for a summer. Me.
Wow. See, This is great. So for our viewers here, like for our listeners in the studio, what we've done with the Disability Channel is try to build a community where we can connect everybody, whether that's an organization, whether that's an individual, whether that's the ministries. And what we want to try and do the same with the veteran community, with the Veteran Affairs, as we are a vendor for Canadian Veteran Affairs, is we want to try and connect with veterans either within organizations or just, you know, individuals, and try to support them. Because like Dan says, when you're serving, you have that support, you have that manpower beside you, you have that, you know, you can turn to somebody. But when you're out of service, you kind of go back on your own. And a lot of veterans are struggling because they need that support, or they've been injured in duty, or, you know, whatever they got going on. So that's what we're trying to build here at the Disability Channel for persons with disabilities. We want you to give us a call. We would love everybody in the studio here, in the audience, to be a part of the channel, right? We got lots of opportunities, right? So for production, audio, and all that, and we're going to get into that later. We're going to do our pod. So Dan, I really thank you for letting me opportunity to interview today. Jill, you're amazing. stay there with those guys, Lori. You should still, because I know Dan has so much to share. Unfortunately, we have a tight schedule here at the location today, so I am going to let you go. But check out Dan's music. It's all over our Facebook page. And Dan, before we let you go, if people want to check out more about your music, where could they go?
I have a website, danwesleywhite.com, which has all my songs. You can either listen to them or buy them, or I also have merch for sale on there as well.
That's great. And watch for Dan, because he's going to be on our SiriusXM radio show that has 34 million subscribers nationwide. We're very excited. So again, I'm going to hand it back to you, Lori. I really thank the opportunity for letting me pop on today. Dan, we'll talk. Jill, always a pleasure. Again, I'm Jay Stoyan from the Today Show on the Disability Channel. We'll see you next time. See you guys.
Bye.
Right.
There's that little fly on the wall again, our founder and esteemed leader, Jay Stoyan. So thank you, Dan, for that. That was awesome, because he wanted to interview you and Jill. Actually, on June 6th, we had Jill and 2 other former members of the military, and we did a special show to commemorate D-Day, the 80th anniversary. So Jill was on that show, so Dan knows her. So that's exciting. So what were we going to ask you? Let me see now. I have to rewind the tape here. Let's see. Yes. What's your next move? What's your next project? What do you want to say? And by the way, Dan, that the 22 a day, I didn't know what it was in America, but I know, Canada, we're struggling too. And Jill can talk more about that too. But I've spent 25 years working on and off First Nations reservations here in Canada. And I have been to Albuquerque, New Mexico, one of the pueblos there with the Navajo Nation. And so we do a lot of work on the prevention side of suicide, and, so that people don't get to that place. And I lost my first husband to suicide as well. So I'm very, very familiar, and he was 35. And I'm very passionate about that because for me, that's a big piece of my work in the world and what we do. And that's why we're excited to be able to support veterans. And now Jill is going to be stepping in to learn my trade so that she can go back out and help in the way that we do. So over to you, Jill, your next move. Well, you're here. She's sitting in front of my desk right now. I mean, she's in my house right now.
You see these? Those are not mine.
Oh. That's okay. I'm sure you have some. I see you wearing yours on your chest. You've got yours on your chest sometimes. So why don't you share with us all, our viewers, what's your next move? That's why you're here, actually.
Well, my next move right now is 100% self-care. One thing that I realize now, and from spending time with fellow veterans and going through my own experience, being a veteran, we're service oriented, we're givers, we want to help, we want to find solutions, and we tend to neglect our own personal needs. And so right now, self-care is a focus for myself, because I can't give from an empty cup. And as you said, I want to work with veterans. I want to support, there's service after service, and we need healthy volunteers in our communities. And there are so many wounded veterans across the country who don't recognize their own self-worth. And so it starts with me, and if I can share what I learn and what I experience, and support other veterans, because it is a family. It really is a family. That's where I get my inspiration. And so I'm going to be working on self-development, self-care, and I have a couple of events to plan this year. I may be doing a Remembrance Day concert in November with a concert band here locally. And so I'll be able to provide some creative input into our remembrance service or remembrance concert. And I'm really looking forward to that, because we can add some new elements for today's veteran, but also honor our veterans from World War II, Korean War, and so on, and other campaigns. So I feel very privileged to have served, and I'm very privileged to still serve And so thank you for having me today to be able to share my experience and to share what inspires me.
Excellent. And what about you, Dan? What's your next move? What's your next project?
I've got another single I'm writing right now, so probably in the next month or so, get back into the studio, release another single. I'm looking to possibly put like a veteran concert together. Maybe bring in other veteran musicians, and so it's like an all veteran cast kind of thing. And then also maybe setting up something where I can start performing and touring around some of the VFWs, the Veteran of Foreign Wars, as we call them here in the U.S. And so there, where all the veterans kind of hang out, their little pub and things like that.
Right. Well, if you need a singer, you know where to get one. We'll have to get you a copy of each other's music. I can't wait to hear them. All right. I'm going to take a little 30-second break because I want to just put out to our viewers that if you have a product, if you have a CD, if you have a book, if you have a program or a special event you want to advertise on the Today Show, then we would you would talk to me. So I'll just put my contact info up there so that you can reach out to me because I'm in charge of that. That's another thing that Jay did, was give me that role. So I'm wearing many hats here as they to help build the Today Show. So, and my dad was a World War II veteran, and I did a show about a year ago now, right around Remembrance Day here in Canada, and I invited children of World War II veterans, and I'm one of them. And we did a show. What was it like to be brought up in a home where dad has come home from war? And I know that my dad was in a psych unit for 3 months in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm quite sure at Camp Hill. And, you know, then there was never any mention of it after that. And he never had a flashback till he was 75. So he soothed his soul with alcohol, of course. And then, you know, we're the children of that. I mean, he was an amazing father, wonderful provider, and he was my hero. And he passed away in 2016. He was 93. But he had the privilege of being interviewed. A very good friend of mine here in Canada. His name is Al Cameron, and if you want to look up his website, Voices of Veterans, and he was originally a TV cameraman. He has single-handedly interviewed over 2,000 veterans and has it on film. So he just traveled across the country, and he's a history buff, and he does an amazing work. And he has now he has a museum, and he has all these artifacts from both world wars in his museum to raise the level of awareness. And it's in a mall, so young people are in the mall walking by. It seems like an odd place for a museum, but he got that space, and it's worked out really well. So Veterans Voices of Canada. I had it backwards. Okay, we'll be right back after this 30-second snowflakes flying in the air, and you could be featured here. So you see, Jill, we're going to get you to sing a little clip, and then we can put that up. And Dan, same, you know, like we could do a 1-minute clip from a song, and you're up there. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Lori Davis, and you're listening to and watching The Today Show, right out of Toronto, Canada. Even though we're from all over the world here, double countries today, international. This makes it an international show today. How cool is that? Okay, so let's have a conversation around, because I brought that up before the break, about families. And we know that our veterans, are struggling. Same thing here in Canada. It just breaks my heart when I hear about veterans, homeless veterans, and that should never be. I find that extremely disturbing, actually. And let's just educate our viewers a little bit about some of the struggles that you know about, that maybe even if it's not you personally, but you've seen and you know and you realize it's out there. So let's just do some education around that for our viewers. Because if they've never had a family member in the military or they've not been in the military themselves, they don't really know much. So here's our chance to let them know some things. So let's start with you, Dan. Struggles that you know, veterans. You mentioned suicide. There's a big one. Um, any other things that you know that's going on?
Well, here in the U.S., a lot of it's homelessness. There's a bunch of homeless veterans. But one of the biggest things is the VA system, the Veteran Affairs system here in the States. It's like jumping through a lot of loopholes and a lot of paperwork just to get some of their disabilities, where they're granted the disability so they can start receiving a pension check for it. And they make it so difficult with all the different forms, all the different doctors you got to see and stuff like that, that a lot of them just give up. And sometimes it's some of these homeless veterans that, you know, they could be getting that monthly check, but because they've made the process so hard, they just give up. And a lot of times fighting with the VA leads to the homelessness and the suicide because they have nothing else to do and they have no other source of income. So that's one of the big things here in the state.
Wow. And I've heard that too. Right, Jill? Same
Yes,
deal.
the bureaucracy is so difficult. It's quite a barrier to the services and support that our veterans need. And they've been working on it for years. And it always seems to be the same barriers that people run up against once they get out of the military, once their service is finished. And yes, and once that happens, then you know the mental health aspect factors in, the stress. They need support. They need treatment. Many of these soldiers have addiction issues, behavioral issues because of their service, because of their mental injuries, and so yeah, homelessness here in Canada. We have a foundation called Homes for Heroes, and they have tiny homes that they've built in Calgary, Edmonton, and I believe now they're working in Kingston, if they haven't already opened Homes for Heroes in Kingston. And so they take in veterans for a temporary time, and the veterans are part of different programs while they're staying in the Homes for Heroes facilities.
Oh, cool.
And so there are some supports, there are some organizations who are doing really great work, and other organizations supporting Homes for Heroes, like, for example, the Canadian Walk for Veterans, Soldier On Foundation, Wounded Warriors. So there are some organizations across Canada doing some very good work, but it's to get to reach those veterans who are in crisis. We have Veterans Emergency Transition Services. They're a charity that started with a veteran who realized, oh my goodness, there are homeless veterans in Halifax. How can this happen? So they were boots on the ground, trying to find homeless veterans on the streets of Halifax, and then it went national. And fellow veterans volunteer for Vets Canada, and now they are partnered with Veterans Affairs and doing great work, 24/7 service. And there's a website, a toll-free number, 24-hour emergency service. So these supports are in place now, but it took crises to become aware and where these organizations were formed.
And how long did you fight to finally get your pension money?
18 years.
Yeah.
I was fine. I didn't want to be disabled. I was fine. I applied and I was declined, and then I applied for a review, and then everything just dropped off, and I just put my nose to the grindstone and pushed through some of my health challenges and worked and worked and worked. And until I burned out, I couldn't, it was too difficult. And it was through fellow veterans who helped guide me through the bureaucracy that helped me get the disability pensions that I have now, thank goodness. And so I'm paying it forward.
Cool. Sound familiar, Dan? A lot of the same things there as well?
Yeah, it's taken me about 20 years to finally get my VA disability stuff in order. Like I said, it's just always fighting their bureaucracy and their red tape that they put in the way. And like I said, if you don't really know what you're doing, you're going to get discouraged and think, oh, I ain't going to get accepted. I'm not going to get this money, or I'm not going to get these benefits or whatever. And then people just lose hope.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Okay. So let's talk about the families. So what do you see happening for the children of veterans, the families? I know for myself, I have a cousin and he was a paratrooper. He did 2 tours, one to Cyprus, 2 to Afghanistan. And, came home completely full-blown PTSD. If he didn't have a really strong wife, I don't know if he ever would have made it. But he told me that, he just, all he can cope with is just getting up, goes to work, works in a gravel pit, comes home, doesn't watch television, has his dogs, and then has supper and goes to bed. And that's been his life since he left, because he was, in a really bad way. So the impact on the family, let's talk about that.
Well, for me, I've got kids, but luckily they were all born after I'd already gotten out, so they weren't really in during my service. But it's really hard on kids, because when the parent is getting either shipped out to different countries or being deployed, they're left at home to fend for themselves. And then when the service member comes back, everything isn't exactly the same as it was before they left. And so it's just as hard on the family as it is the service member most of the time, because the family members don't understand what's going on in our heads, what we hear or see daily. And it's hard to explain that to them where they understand. And sometimes they take it as, hey, they're distancing me on purpose or whatever, but that's really not the case. We're just trying to find our way of surviving each day. Just like you said, just getting up out of bed is a struggle most of the time.
Yes. What about you, Jill? What are some things you've seen or experienced?
Oh my goodness. What's coming back to my memory is when I served with the Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry in my last posting before my retirement, and they were deployed to Kosovo in Europe. And I didn't deploy because of my medical condition at the time, but I remember the families were there to see off their loved ones, and the children standing there holding the hands of their mom or their the spouse that stays behind, and waving goodbye and crying as the bus departs. And I remember there was a dear friend of mine who came in, and he said, "Here, Jill, can you hold this letter for my daughter just in case anything happens to me? Can you make sure she gets this?" And during that same deployment, I was working in the orderly room at the front of in the headquarters, and we got a call from the message center, and I answered the phone, and they said, "We need to talk to your commanding officer. We have a casualty." And we lost a soldier who was on R&R in Greece, and he was in a moped accident, and he was killed. And so I had to go inform our acting commanding officer, because our unit was over in Kosovo. So we had an acting commanding officer, and then we had to call the padre, and then they had to go to this man's family and inform. And it was a huge deal, But the unit rallied for the family. But it was very and interesting. A year later, there was a commemoration at the base. This is in 1999, 2000, summer of 2000, and I got to sing at a dedication ceremony for this soldier and his family, and I got to meet his 2 little girls.
Oh,
so So when you ask, how does this impact the families? That's the first memory that just came back to me, because I have so many. And also my brother served 3 tours in Afghanistan, and his wife and 3 children were back home here in Canada while he was overseas, and the stress it had on his family, on my parents, and myself, because his second tour, he was outside the wire as an infantryman in Afghanistan, training the Afghan army. And I never prayed so hard for so long for him to come home safe.
Mhm.
It was very stressful.
Yes, it would be. All right. So now, some of the other aspects, of course, would be the financial stressors, because now we're not working anymore. We don't have that paycheck coming in. Maybe no pension money coming in. Wow. And if you came back with a physical disability, that's certainly limiting when it comes to what you can do, right?
Right.
So how is that working out? Well, it's not, is it?
Well, in
tough.
the US VA, we have a program where if you get to a certain percentage of disability, they do a job retraining.
Okay.
And that's what I went through. And that's how I was able to get my teaching degree to teach music, was because I'd gotten a certain percentage when I filed my official paperwork or initial paperwork. And that's how I was able to go back to school. And the VA, I will give them credit for that, because I got 100% of my schooling paid for free through the VA because of that.
Well, that's excellent.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, with the Canadian military, when I retired in 2000, you had to wait a number of weeks before your severance pay came in, before your first pension check came through, because of the bureaucracy. You had 3 to 4 months to wait for any income to come in, whether you were voluntarily released or medically released. So after some soldiers filing reports to the Canadian Forces Ombudsman, they changed the policies so that you will not release from the military unless your finances are in order and we've got everything all lined up in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, financially, when you're not well, you can't, and most of the time your pension will not cover your expenses, because it's a percentage of what you earned when you were working full time. And so your income is less, but your needs are more because you've been medically released. You're needing treatment, you're needing supports, and many injured veterans go into debt because of physical therapy and treatments, and many alternative treatments that are very effective but aren't covered under the benefits with Veterans Affairs because they're not recognized. That can be very expensive as well. I've spent thousands of dollars on my own treatment for brain injury, and yeah, it's a juggling act for many.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times you have to go out and get second and third opinions from private doctors to combat what the VA is trying to say through their doctors. So, I mean, it's always a constant battle and a money pit, basically.
Yes, yes.
To prove that your condition is attributable to military service, caused by your service.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I have to say, here in Canada, my dad did receive a check once a month from Veterans Affairs as a World War II veteran, but not for years. Like they never got that money until Dad retired. After that kicked in then, and my mom is still alive, and she can access certain services through them as well, even though he's passed away. So if she needed her driveway shoveled or housekeeping, that sort of thing. So, but my dad was an accountant by profession, and he fought for that, and finally, yeah, and he advocated for others as well, especially in the money department, because a lot of times, I don't know what it's like. I've never been in the service. So when you're in the service and you have a family, does the family get the money directly, or do you get it, or how does that piece work?
Well, it goes directly to the member, to the veteran.
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly, in Canada, we have 3 streams of pension through Veterans Affairs. We have the Old Pension Act, Then we have the new Veterans Charter, which came in 2006, and nobody knew the changes that were being implemented until they were passed. So all of a sudden, instead of getting a lifelong pension for your injuries, you're getting a lump sum that you can burn through really fast when you're not well enough to manage it, and then you're out of luck. And then now there's the new pension for life. So there's three streams of pension from the Veterans Affairs here in Canada, and depending on when you apply, will determine where your pension benefits are coming from. I am in all three. So it's interesting. They've kind of made a bit of a mess of it, but I'm grateful for the support I have now. But I tell you, it's not easy to get the support initially.
Yeah. What about down your way, Dan? I love Texas, by the way. I've made many trips there.
It's nice and hot already, and it's not even July yet.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I need to come visit.
Yeah. We're already up in the 110s.
Oh wow! So what about in the States, in America, the system that people get paid?
It's just based on how high your disability rating is. They rate it from a 0% all the way to 100%. And each one is step tiered. If you're like 10%, you get this much a month. If you're 20%, you get this much a month. And you also get added after 30%, you can add your dependents to it as well, and then receive a little bit extra money. It's about $100 a month extra for kids, each kid that is. So it's all, like I said, it's just all tiered, and you have to take so much time to prove that what you're suffering from now is related to your time in service. And that's where a lot of people run into problems. It's like, I've got all these medical issues. I was around this stuff when I was deployed, but you're saying I didn't get it because I was over there, but yet you're the one that sent me over there. So
exactly.
Yeah. The government don't like to pay for their mistakes.
No, I think that's across the border as well. Well, actually, I shared this on our veterans show. My husband was 6 years in the military, and he's an AME. He got his aircraft maintenance engineer, journeyman trade, whatever. And of course, he worked on military helicopters. Helicopters were his thing. And they didn't wear, my husband's 82, so he's older. And they didn't wear any kind of protection. They weren't provided with any kind of protection. So he had tendonitis in his ears for years. And I didn't know, because he was of the belief that he was only in for only 6 years. So he's not entitled to anything. That's an assumption, right? But anyway, I'm getting my hair done. This is where I heard about it. I'm getting my hair done. And my hairdresser's dad came in to drop off some mail or something. And he asked me, he said, "How's Ron doing?" And I said, "Oh, he's doing pretty good." And this guy was in the Air Force about the same time as Ron. And he said, "Yeah," he said, "how's his hearing?" And I said, "I have to say everything 2, 3 times. And I have to yell. I'm yelling all the time. I'm burning myself out." Well, he said, "He can get hearing aids, through Veterans Affairs." I said, "He can?" "Oh, yeah. And he can get a lump sum of money too. So get on it." And that's how I found out that my military husband could get some support. So it's not something that is advertised, right? Or made easy, as you're saying. No. All right. Well, we have about 5-6 minutes left. So isn't that the fastest hour of the week? Let's talk a little bit more about your music, what you want to do now with your music. I'm going into your site, Dan, right after, and I want to hear some music. And Jill, do you have any YouTube?
I have a YouTube channel.
You do?
Just Jill.
Just Jill?
And just Jill.
Okay.
But I'm a work in progress, and I have some ideas moving forward regarding social media and creating content moving forward. But at the moment, just a couple of links for YouTube videos for my music, and also I'm on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook under Jill Younghusband, and some of my music is there, as well as some live clips I did a gig last weekend at this auto gallery to commemorate D-Day with some old vintage military vehicles, and they had a little diner, Sylv's Diner, and so we sang some rock and roll last Saturday afternoon. So I did a Facebook Live. So that was fun.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. What about you, Dan? Are you involved in social media in any way?
Yeah, I'm probably not as involved as I should be. My record label says I need to be putting something up every day, and maybe I put something up every few days.
Okay.
It's just I can't get into like just sitting there trying to come up with stuff.
Yeah.
Like some of these people do. I mean, I guess it's because I'm more of a private person. That's the way I grew up. That you keep everything to yourself. You don't push stuff out there because then people will take off with it, and that's kind of what we see in social media. But I do have a YouTube channel. It's Dan Wesley White 1995, or you can just look me up under Dan Wesley White. I don't have any really videos on there. It's just my music through YouTube.
Dan Wesley White, what?
1995.
Okay. All right. We shall check that out for sure.
And then people can also find me on Facebook under Dan Wesley White as well. Okay. That's my public page.
Cool. Excellent. All right. So anything you'd like to share? One more round. Anything we'd like to share out there, maybe to up and coming musicians, and Dan, you're in the perfect spot to be doing that because that's what you do. But what kind of advice would you give someone if they know they have a musical gift? What would you say to them?
Explore it, learn an instrument, learn how to sing, take lessons. That's the real big thing. A lot of people think everything's about America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent or all those little talent shows, but you got to have some sort of structure. You got to learn, and the best way to do it is from somebody that's more advanced and has experience, because then they can pass the knowledge that they learned through however many people to you, and you keep that knowledge going. And just put yourself out there. I mean, I wouldn't have thought a few years ago I would have several singles online already, but I tried it one day because I just wanted to leave my mark for my kids and everybody. And you'll never know until you try. Technology makes things a lot easier nowadays to get things put up on like Spotify or Apple Music, things like that. So that's how I'm doing it. And then I'm sending all my recordings. I make them here in my house, but then I send my recordings to the studios in Nashville, and then they put people with it and they do the professional mix. And then it sounds like I was there in Nashville the whole time. So with technology the way it is, it's a lot easier to get into the music business.
Cool. Thank you. Jill, what would you be offering up for words of encouragement to any budding musician or singer?
Dan said, if you have a gift, share it. I was a home-based singer. I would just play my guitar and sing it at parties and such. And then somebody said, you should get out and perform. And yeah, it was a little anxiety provoking, I must say. But yes, get some instruction, because I had so much fear. I had stage fright with the musicians that were playing for me, because I didn't know how to read music. I didn't know what a lead sheet was, how to count in, etc., etc. All I knew was I wanted to sing, and I had a voice, and I wanted to share it. And so find the folks that encourage you, and look at local workshops. That's how I got started. I went to a jazz vocal camp for a week. I was in my early 30s. I hadn't had a voice lesson in my life. And so that's where it all started for me at Grant MacEwan. And so look for workshops, look for open stages in your local community where you can get up on stage, where you can get familiar with performing live. If that's something that you're curious about, look at open stages and find other, and that's how you can network and find other musicians as well that you can work with. So I just encourage you and practice, lots of practice.
And I would say also, just like the open mic nights, talk to different bands and maybe learn a song or two of theirs, and maybe they'll invite you up on stage to play their music. That's another thing you can do.
Oh, wow. Awesome. I can't sing, but I can do stand-up comedy.
So I bet.
I did. That's how I got started and how I got over being afraid of, speaking in front of people way back in the day. And I mean, I was a school teacher and people would say, well, you shouldn't be afraid of standing up in front of people. You teach kids all day long. I said, yeah, but they're kids. They're not my peers. That's a totally different ball of wax, right?
Mhm.
Well, I just want to thank you on behalf of the Disability Channel and the Today Show for taking time out of your really busy schedules to be here with us today. It's been marvelous. And thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thank you so much,
Anytime.
Dan. Thank you.
Anytime.
Nice
All
to meet
right.
you, Dan.
Nice to
Yeah.
meet you too.
You bet.
All the best.
Okay. Perfect.